Sanctuary. I'm Ryan. Topic, today's live stream is on the topic of to tell or not to tell, disclosing a disability in the workplace. All the information below came from the Kennedy Krieger website, Interactive, sorry, Autistic Network, or IAN, in the article To Tell or Not to Tell, Disclosing a Disability in the Workplace. Young adults entering the workforce today grew up in a time of greater openness about disability. Students with autism, and sorry if you don't like the terminology, but this is what was written in the article, often attended class alongside those without disabilities. Special education plans, or IEPs, made sure that teachers knew a student had a disability and needed certain help to succeed. For students who entered college, registering at the campus disability services office ensured that they could continue to get at least some accommodations to their autism, such as copies of lecture notes. And for me, I can personally attest to that because I did get like certain accommodations for my disabilities. Back then, I didn't know I was autistic though. So, should someone who is used to disclosing his or her autism in school continue to do so when entering the world of work? Some say yes. Disclosure enables a worker to get an accommodation that can help him or her get and keep a job. But others say disclosing can lead to subtle or obvious kinds of forms of prejudice. Personally, for myself, this is personal. I disclose my disabilities. I don't have to, but I do because I want employers to know that, like, what they are gonna encounter as I'm doing the job. So just so they're aware. I know people say, yeah, you shouldn't disclose your disability, but I guess it's based on a preference. Hello. Michael J. Prince, a Canadian professor, summed up the dilemma of people with invisible disabilities such as autism. While disclosure is in the root, oh, you don't have a disability, you don't see disability. Disabilities are not always visible. I have invisible disabilities. Like I'm autistic, dyslexic, and ADHD, or which you won't see. Hello. Um, where was I at? Oh, yes. While disclosure is a route to the workplace accommodation process, it can be the best interest of the employee with looking over. Like I said, disabilities are not always visible. Mine are not visible, so you wouldn't know, which is what I commonly get. You don't look like you have a disability, which is very disrespectful in my opinion because I deal with them every single day of my life. I've dealt with them. So yeah, where was I at? This is the best interest of the employee with the disability, he wrote. It is highly risky decision to disclose, with various potential disadvantages along with advantages. What are those pros and cons? If you decide to disclose, how and when should you do it? What accommodations can you seek? These answers are important because you're fine. I know not every, because I've had, you're not, it's not your fault. And I also think I feel like it's a people in society, or the society doesn't tell you that disabilities can be invisible, like you can't see them with the naked eye. So I think it's based on society's ignorance and not sharing it with its people. So you don't need to apologize. It's possible to understand. Like if you don't know about it, you wouldn't. You would think that you would have to physically see a disability. My point is, I don't want you to take. I'm not. It's not an attack toward you. I'm just saying, if you don't know about it, you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't think that. And you're not the person to say that I don't look like I have a disability. I've had it more than once. So, yeah. Where was I at? Oh, yes. So these answers are important because finding and keeping a job can be difficult for adults across the spectrum. I hate that word, but I know some people don't mind the autism spectrum. And I didn't change this language, which makes me mad at myself because I don't like certain terms in this article that I read. But okay, according to Wendy H. Hensel, an American law professor, the employment prospects of people with autism remain bleak. Um, Almost half of people with autism have at least average intelligence, but only a small percentage are employed, she wrote in a law review article. In fact, um, adults with autism are less likely to work than people with intellectual disabilities, speech impairments, and learning disabilities. I don't know. I feel like I don't believe that statement, but I'm also maybe because I'm biased because I don't know. Maybe I'm biased, but I don't think that statement is true. What you said, but okay, I'll go on to the next part. First, it helps to understand that that U.S. law affects workers with autism. And sorry for anyone that hates me saying with autism, because I don't like saying it, but it was in the article, and I should have changed some of these wordings, but I didn't. Like I normally, because sometimes I will change certain wordings if I don't like it. You dislike working with companies anymore because they implement games and mock people with disabilities to see if they notice. Oh, I'm so sorry. I literally am so sorry. I don't even know what to say to that. That's really disgusting. Is all I got. Me being autistic, dyslexic, and an ADHD, and no one. Let's be honest. People don't know normally notice unless I. Typically, they know what they're looking at. If you work around kids that are autistic or people that are autistic and dyslexic, and ADHD, they notice. But if not, then it's not very noticeable. And I think it's disgusting people mocking people that have disabilities. Yeah. What are the rights of Americans with disabilities? Let's start with the Americans Disability Act, or the ADA, a law that bans discrimination against people with disabilities. The ADA does not require workers to tell employees that they have a disability, and employers cannot ask work applicants if they do. It's interesting that they say that, but on applications they put about if you have a disability or not, and then they hold on, guys. Um, uh, that they put on an application if you have a disability, check it or not, even though they say it's self-disclosure. So technically, I don't quite understand that particular statement. Um, but if a person does tell, called disclosing, she can get an accommodation. Accommodations are changes on how to complete a job interview or, if hired, how to perform her job. This serves to address a challenge posed by the disability. Accommodations can be environmental, such as a quieter workspace for a person who cannot function well around noise or distraction, or procedural, such as written, providing written instructions to people who struggle with written, dis- sorry, destruct, sorry, directions. Sorry for all the pronunciation problems. I do have dyslexia, which also is unfortunately more heightened when I'm on camera because my anxiety is in play. So I'm sorry if anyone's annoyed by it. These also can be individual accommodations because, of course, we know that every person needs every single accommodation someone else has. Like each accommodation is going to be tailored towards that individual. So 10 people that have autism, they might all need something different in their accommodations as a result of it, which is what Melanie Hetzel, the the lead consultant of cognitive slash neurological team of the Accommodation Network, or JAN, at the U.S. Department. Oh, thank you. Department of Labor. JAN provides free advice for workplace accommodations and disability issues to workers and their employers. The ADA, and this is just so you know, this is based on the U.S. Sorry if you live somewhere else. This literally article is tailored towards the U.S. I'm not saying that people outside the U.S. can't relate to some of this stuff, but particularly the ADA. I don't know how cold it is. It's really cold here though because it snowed yesterday. But yeah. So the ADA can be a ticket to getting what someone needs to land a job and keep it. But it is important to know that the law's limitations. For one, it does not apply to private employers with less than 15 workers, and it is to be protected. So it is to be protected. An employee. I'm not. I'm not looking for anyone. I'm not looking for a relationship at the moment. So yeah. Um, where am I at? An employee must be qualified and be able to perform the job's essential functions, which are basic job duties that an employee must be able to perform. Um, the job essential functions. I know you said something in Arabic. I literally don't know what you said, but because it doesn't translate. Sorry. Um, so which are job duties that the employee must be able to perform with or without reasonable accommodation, according to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC. Depending on the job, those duties could involve having certain social and communication skills, which which are often affected by autism. Also, an accommodation should be reasonable, not pose an undue hardship to the employer, or limit the essential functions of the job. How do you know if the accommodation you need is reasonable? It really depends on the circumstances and the cost, Ms. Hensel said. For example, an employee who wants fluorescent lights covered with filters or replaced with lamps in a small workplace is more likely to get that accommodation than someone who wants the entire lighting system removed in a factory. You are not entitled to the exact accommodations you want, she said, but they should be effective. Also, employers do not have to lower their productivity standards for the worker, although an accommodation should help him complete the work on time. Pros and cons of disclosure of autism to the employer. Should you disclose? Most experts say it's a personal decision. Like I said earlier, that's why I disclose. It's my personal preference. Not everyone agrees with my personal preference, and not everyone's going to do that. It's based on the individual. It's like I said, like in the article it says, based on a worker's preference and needs. So someone may not feel comfortable. It could even be based on past situations where you disclose and some kind of discrimination happens, so you may not want to disclose the next one. Or it could just be based on how you feel like the workplace is, that particular job is, you may not want to disclose. Because of course I know, even though it's not said, you can have someone could say they didn't hire you because of something else, even though it is solely based on you disclosing the disability you have. Um, Disclosure is not without risk. Dr. Prince, a social policy professor, notes that people who disclose a disability may face stigma, and that's another reason people don't disclose. In 1963, sociologist Irving Goffman described stigma as a form of shame imposed by society on people who have a characteristic that is discredited. Because of the great rewards in being considered normal, almost all persons who are in a position to pass as normal will do so on some occasion by intent. Dr. Goffman. In the workplace, people with known disabilities may be viewed as needy or an object of curiosity, and it may languish in dead-end jobs or be overlooked for team projects, Dr. Prince wrote after reviewing different articles on the topic. If something goes wrong, the disability may be blamed. Some workers fear that if they disclose a disability, their employers will look for a different reason to fire them. So it doesn't look discriminatory. said Maureen Van Stone, an associate director of the Maryland Center for Developmental Disabilities. Employers may be able to justify the termination in another way, she said. Nevertheless, disclosure comes with advantages, including legal protections and accommodations. Oh, the topic is to tell or not to tell disclosing a disability in the workplace. According to Ms. Van Stone and Dr. Prince, disclosure also reduces the stress of keeping a disability a secret. Dr. Prince wrote, masking or hiding one's symptoms, which I often do. I used to do a lot more because certain behaviors are not acceptable in society, which is really very annoying and very stressful. So masking actually, what masking would do is you're basically putting on and I don't mean masking as in COVID masking. I'm talking about masking like your feelings and the way you actually naturally are in society because it's not deemed acceptable. And autistics do that a lot. So yeah, that's often is stressful and exhausting uh, exercise done to avoid discrimination and negative reactions from others. And it's explained sociologist explained Noah J. Sasson, I think is that his name, Sasson. Dr. Sasson studies social disability and autism at the University of Texas at Dallas. Little research exists on whether people who disclose a disability receive accommodations fare better in the workforce than others who don't. I don't know. I feel like it depends. Like it depends on how, if your workplace is disability friendly. So when I say disability friendly, I mean like it's set up towards people that have disabilities. Yeah. So that would tell me if like they're going to like the accommodation will be met or not. Most likely, if your workplace is accessible or even accommodating to someone as disability, regardless if it's a physical one or not. Like it's visible or not visible. So that would tell me something. Um, so little research exists on whether people who disclose a disability receive accommodations fare better than in the workplace than those who do not. However, one study found that adults who disclose an autism diagnosis to their employer were more than three times as likely to be employed than those who did not disclose. That study in 2016 study by researchers where am I at? Sorry, researchers in New York did not explain why. 3/3 of adults they surveyed had a university degree, and those more education with more education were more likely to have a job. Getting a foot into the door, disclosing for interviews. While autism may carry stigma, disclosing it may work in an applicant's favor, and provides. Where am I at? Sorry, guys. Provides a more favorable explanations for certain problems. For example, a job seeker with unexplained gaps in his work history and communication problems may be evaluated more positively if an interviewer knows that he's autistic. Oh, thanks for encouraging me. There's just a lot, so sometimes I lose my spot when I'm looking to make sure the chat is safe because I want this channel to be a safe space because it is a safe space for me and others. So I just am paying attention off and on, so I lose my spot. According to law professor Wendy Hensel, absence and explanation, communication difficulties in an interview may be certainly disrail the candidacy, she wrote. A small study found that college students with autism had subtle communication differences during mock job interviews. They took longer to begin answering questions and spoke for more various lengths of time than other students. And I wish they would do mock interviews more, honestly, particularly with people that have like social problems with social um, interaction. Personally, myself, I wish I had had more mock interviews. Um, yeah, I just wish I had that. So because I feel like they would have prepared before the actual real interview. Then when you go in an interview, you feel like terrified. Literally, I do. When I go in, I have my anxiety and then all the other thoughts that are happening every time. According to researchers at City University of New York, I've never heard of that university, but yeah, they recommend the college students that have autism receive help managing first impressions, a social skill used in interviews. I didn't always know I had ADHD actually. I mean, I found out I had it. I didn't realize I had ADHD for a while. Other studies also found that first impressions can be a problem in autism. And yeah, I would say that's accurate, at least personally for myself. I don't really like engaging with other people like that. I don't feel comfortable, and I know that's common for autistics. They don't like really being around other people and engaging, which is understandable. Researchers at University of Texas found that observers formed more negative first impressions of people with autism than other people when they were viewed or heard videos, pictures, or sound recordings of themselves in social situations. And I'm sure if I was recorded in a social situation, it would not look good to other people, but that's part of being in a social situation, which is why I tend to avoid them. A second study found that the first impression improved um, when observers were told that the person had autism, especially if the observers were familiar with autism. These studies did not include job interviews, cautioned Dr. Sasson, who led both research teams. We cannot know what the effects of disclosure would be beyond how it is tested in our study. And sorry if you hear any background noise. I live with my parents and my siblings, so if you hear that, yeah. Do I stay calm in front of people? Not really. I'm internally freaking out, but you can't always. Sometimes you can probably tell externally, but not always. Where was I at? Oh yes. And the risks and benefits of disclosure likely depend on who is doing the disclosing and who they are disclosing to and why and how they're disclosing, etc. What types of accommodations do applicants with ASD or autism spectrum disorder, and I hate calling it that because I know a lot of people don't like it called that, seek. In an interview and a journal article, Ms. Hensel described examples of pre-employment accommodations received by people who contacted the Job Accommodation Network. I don't think I knew about this network, honestly. When looking for jobs, I don't think I ever knew about this network until I started researching. I found out about this. For example, one job applicant requested extra time to complete a written test for a library technician job. The applicant explained that he had poor fine motor skills that affected handwriting. The job did not require that books be shelved in certain amount of times, and so the library granted his request. So some requests can be, some accommodations will be accepted, and others will be rejected based on the job, which is sucky, but it's true. You said, how do I stay calm in front of the camera? Yeah, oh yeah, I don't, definitely don't. I already answered that one. Okay, just making sure I didn't miss a question, because I sometimes do when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at my research that I'm doing. Others with autism experience anxiety and other difficulties when questioned by strangers in a new environment, as which also happens during job interviews. They have requested that they be interviewed by small groups, or even that the first interview be done by telephone. Hensel wrote in the Journal of Vocational Rehabilitation. People who need extra time to think about a question and answer it have asked to see the interview questions in advance. And also, this is really good for autistic people that are autistic to see the question in advance so they can prepare a response. So then they don't feel pressured when they are asked these questions. They know what they're going to say typically. Sometimes, well, for me, this has worked in some instances and others not so well. It depends because my anxiety plays a role in everything I do, unfortunately. But that request may be denied if reacting quickly is essential for the job. An applicant for a firefighting job asks to see interview questions in advance. She recalled. They said no because you may have to act on your own and act quickly on the job as a firefighter, she recalled. So, like I said, some accommodations will be denied and some will be approved. It depends on it depends on the job. And sorry, it's windy outside, so if you hear the background noise of the house, it's because it's really windy here for the moment. In other instances, she said, an employer has to meet an applicant halfway. One person with autism applied for a job counseling prisoners. Instead of a face-to-face interview, he asked the employer to send him the interview questions so he could respond in writing. And the employer said no. The applicant would be counseling inmates directly, and the interviewers wanted to evaluate his skills in person. So, like I said, that's why certain things, and even in interviews, the convention may not be met because of that. Because it might be based on what the job inquires or entails. But they made two changes. They allowed him to see the questions before the interview, and they reduced the number of interviewers from three to two. And one thing I do wish when they on applications, at least for mine, I've had job interviews where I've had panels of people ask me questions at a time, which really, really heightened my anxiety. I've had at most 5 people asking me questions, firing questions out at me, and I mean, of course, I answer, but it drives my anxiety up because I'm like, I don't understand why all this is happening, and I'm not neurotypical, so maybe neurotypicals may not get as nervous, but me being autistic does come into play when I'm doing these interviews, and it's a lot. Yeah, I definitely think it'd be awesome to have the questions beforehand, but unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. One podcast, an interview I did for a podcast or someone's YouTube channel, I did actually have the questions beforehand because she knew I was autistic and she knew and she accommodated it. It doesn't always happen that way, but yeah. When did you transit? I don't know what that means. I didn't transition at all, so I have no idea what you're talking about. Um, when requesting an accommodation for an interview, um, Ms. Hensel advised, be prepared to share the nature of your disability and how it affects your ability to participate in in the pro, my brain is losing. Sometimes my brain will do this brain fart, so I'm like, okay, pre-employment process. Sorry, guys. Um, an employer may ask for medical documentation of the disability if you disclose, according to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC. You may want to disclose, you want to disclose your autism, but when? If an applicant needs an accommodation for a job, but not for the interview, should she or he disclose the interview during the interview, or wait until he or she receives the job offer, or starts working? Again, it depends. Like for a lot of these stuff, it depends on how comfortable you feel disclosing. If you don't feel like there's going to be any recourse or backlash from you disclosing, I feel like it depends. I feel like a lot of what this article is saying, it depends on a lot of different aspects to come in. Like for me, like my past jobs, I felt it important to disclose. So, like for example, there'd be times I had meltdowns. That I had a meltdown at a job because of certain aspects, but they knew that I'm autistic, so they didn't that wasn't held against me. They understood. They would try, and also one of my bosses was like, they wanted to know about. They wanted to know. Well, they knew so they could accommodate me. So I mean, like not all jobs accommodate people, even if they know about your disability or not, which is very annoying, but it's true. A lot of people tell us that they want they want to be open from the beginning. Like that's how I feel. I like being open from the beginning, but not everyone does, and that's understandable. Um, because it could be past trauma and stuff. So if an employer is not willing to work with me during the hiring process, then they won't work with me later. So then you know that that employer would not want to work with you. So like for that, but you would basically that's not the that's not the right job when it comes to your disabilities. And of course we have non-fit. So sometimes you have a fit. I mean, have a job you go to interview. It sounds perfect, but then you find out later on that they are not very, let's be honest, disability friendly. And I say disability friendly because it's all different disabilities. But you said you only disclosed to disclose because they showed you that. That's a good one too. I agree. I agree. You can tell somebody if you trust that person. That's a great one too. So we at JAN, which is Job Accommodation Network, say that it's a personal decision. Like for me, that's why I said it's a personal preference why I disclose. I don't have to, but and like even my dad and my mom, like sometimes say, why do you, they ask why I disclose. They don't have a problem with me disclosing that I, about my disabilities, but they sometimes even they say why do you talk about it in there? And I say because I want the person to know up from what they're going to have to deal with when it comes to job because I don't always I don't how do I say it? I don't I don't like the way my brain works. I don't always maybe act appropriately towards a certain thing. I sometimes I have my thoughts are like I have to think about it and then decide. Even though sometimes that's not the right move. Sometimes I will certain things that upset me won't upset someone else. It depends. Like it can be a situation. Like I often can I don't know. It's just not. I don't act like a neurotypical. Is what I'm saying. I don't act like people are that are quote unquote normal, which I don't think that's even a. I think normal is a stupid word because I don't think anyone is quote unquote normal. Everyone is different. So yeah. But later you wait to disclose. Sorry, but the later you wait to disclose, lesser the chance of being discriminated against. I don't know. I feel like that statement is I don't know how I feel about that statement, but and this is said Miss Hensel. She's a former special educator or special um, in other words, it may be difficult to prove that an employer did not hire you because you disclosed having a disability during the interview. But if you disclosed after receiving a job interview, you know that you're qualified for the job, and they would show you why the offer was revoked. That's what she said. Whether or not job seekers choose to disclose or request accommodation for being autistic, Ms. Hensel has tips that may help land jobs that they want. She recommended learning as much about the possible much as possible about the requirements of the job. What they will or what you have to do, where you will be doing it, and what the qualifications related to it. Um, Applicants will use the U.S. Department of Labor's online occupational outlook handbook to research occupation. She said, "I am literally so sorry. I keep having all these pronunciation issues, but that's part of me dyslexic on top of being autistic and an ADHD. So bear with me. I will put everything. All these notes will go under the live stream once it's done, just so you're like not mad. Like, yeah. Oh, sorry. Anyone that's kind of having trouble following along, I should say. Um, the handbook describes the duties required, education, and the work environments for hundreds of jobs. She advised applicants to think about what they want and where they thrive. Do you prefer working in a small, quiet space? Of course I do, but of course I know in the job I had I couldn't do that. Um, alone with a few others. I don't really like working around others, even though I know in the last job I had to. I like being by myself in my own space. Because I don't like having to have to engage if I don't want to, which most of the time I don't. But that's just a personal thing. My being autistic for me is like I know not everyone that's autistic is like that, but I know for myself that's how I am. What was I gonna say? Oh yes, where am I at? Some employers will accommodate you by providing a quiet workspace in a separate area, she said, but others may not, depending on the job, which is very annoying because I feel like that tells me that basically not all job we all know that not all jobs are disability friendly. If you're telling me you can't accommodate something when it's I don't know when I feel like it's needed, but that's just a Mariah thought. If you cannot work in a sea of cubicles, she said, then then you should know that ahead of time. Keep it brief and practice. She also encourages applicants to keep their answers brief and succinct. And I think that's really hard for autistics. And I know for me it's hard, especially when someone asks me about like what like my interest or something when it pertains to the job, and I talk in length about like disability community and stuff, and I kind of can't help it. It's one of my special interests, so it's kind of not my fault. And I know they say keep it brief and succinct, and sometimes I kind of tend to go off and ramble in interviews. I don't mean to, but it kind of happens. So, like, because we may interpret language literally, and I think that's often for most autistics, they tend to think that things are literal. I do it myself. I don't know about everyone out there, but I know I do it. And some people with autism tend to get tripped up on broad and vague questions during an interview. I totally do. I totally do. Like, when they ask, like, why do I want to work for the job? Like, that, I want to say, like, I need money, but you can't say that in an interview. So, because I would literally probably say that, but I know I'm not supposed to. Um, okay. Interviewers who ask applicants to talk about themselves are not asking for long personal stories. And I think that's unfair. If you tell me to talk about myself, then you can't expect me not to, like, bring all of my stuff, because, like, I will take it literally. Why don't you say, I'd rather someone say, like, three, or, like, particularly, you have to say specifics. Like, say four good things, so four things about yourself. Like, that's more detailed than vague, because if you say, talk about yourself, you didn't specify, like, what parts you want to talk about, so then someone will talk their whole story, so, yeah. Because, like, to be honest, I know that being autistic, I need clear and concise directions. Like, you can't just say, talk about yourself, and not expect me to just talk about my whole story. That's just the Mariah thought. I know, like, people are like, what? Some people are like, what? Some people understand me because they've been there. Um, they really want the information about their education and the experience related to their job. They should specify that too. If you're gonna say, tell me about yourself, tell me about yourself related to your work experience. That's that. I think that would be like a better question than tell me about yourself, because tell me about yourself is basically telling you about the person, not the actual related to the job field. Another potential pitfall is the interview question, tell me about your interests or your favorite hobbies. Many people that are autistic have special interests that could be discussed at length, that they could discuss at length, which I know personally I do. But interviewers probably do not want a long answer. Keep your answers brief. To keep your answers brief, job hunters can jot down a few points about their interest in advance and refer to those notes during the interview, said Miss Hensel. Above all, she encourages job applicants to practice their interviewing skills with a job coach or someone who can conduct a mock interview and provide feedback. As much as possible, people should be prepared, she said. And that was the end of today's notes. Do you guys have any questions? It can be based on my personal experiences as being a person that's autistic, dyslexic, or ADHD, or related to job stuff too. My personal experience. I just want to make sure before I say what next week's topic is and what Monday's is. Literally, so you said for you, you don't want to talk about things related to the job experience because I agree. I know the things that are related to the job are definitely not would not be part of my interest. Like, I mean, unless it's like a job that is tailored to the disability community, then it'd be part of my interest. But if it's like a job that anyone else can do, well, I guess maybe a job that maybe retail, like that wouldn't be part of my interest. Um, I just love helping my community, which is disability community, and I love that what I do helps other people. Like I didn't think it would. I'm glad it does. Like being able to reach different people in different parts of the world. Like I didn't think that would ever happen. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions before I say what's happening on Monday and next Saturday's topic is? And I appreciate people that are in the chat saying very good points and good thoughts and stuff. Oh, I just finished the topic of to tell and not to tell, disclosing a disability in the workplace. Uh, and I was just asking if anyone had any questions. Oh, well, I'm glad that I was reading some of your comments. They were really good, Mercury. I read everyone's comments, and the ones that are rude, I take off of there. Um, I have had people say hateful things, and when I see that, or if I say it towards anyone else, I take them off because this is supposed to be a safe space for everyone in the disability community and also people that want to learn about the disability community because it's inclusive. Which I wish the world was more inclusive, but it's not, unfortunately. Um, so, how do you feel? Do you feel like you expected to mask when you have a job? I have masked. I didn't realize I was masking. At points. At my last job, because like my since my some of my coworkers were actually really accepting of my disabilities, I didn't mask, which is amazing. I didn't mask. I mean, only masked when my emotions were being hurt at the end of my job, like so when I felt emotionally unsafe. Oh, I said I fin Jordan. I was saying that I finished the topic that we discussed on this channel. So if you want to go back and watch it later, you can. It was on to tell and not to tell, disclosing a disability in the workplace. So now I'm just taking questions and I'm answering someone's question. So masking, autistic masking. I feel like in the last job I had, I didn't have to mask as much my emotions or my behaviors because people actually understood how I reacted was and they accepted it. And I've never had like in a workspace, I never really had a space where I felt safe enough to be able to unmask my not sorry to be fully myself. And in that opportunity, like people understanding how I am and like not judging me for it, I felt comfortable enough um to be myself fully there. Hopefully that answered the question. Any more questions, Mercury? Because you seem like they're the only one to ask the questions at the moment. Question back to you, Mercury. Did you feel like you have to do you feel like you had to mask in any do you feel like if you're only answer this if you're comfortable. Did you feel like you had to mask in any of your jobs because you didn't feel emotionally safe or something? Because I know I even did a video on masking because of that reason. Because I was thinking the reason people do mask, like autistics do mask, is because they don't feel safe in the environment they're in. Like they don't feel emotionally or mentally safe. And I understand that there's many times I don't feel emotionally or mentally safe. Literally at the end of my last job that I had, I literally stopped talking because um, I literally stopped talking because I didn't feel emotionally safe from one of my coworkers. So I know it's called selective mutism. That's what I did. I just wouldn't speak because I didn't feel safe in that environment. And to me, and all of them knew that I had disabilities. Not like they didn't, but I felt emotionally unsafe. So I just stopped speaking. Did you have any more questions, Mercury? You feel like you have to mask all the time. Yeah, I understand. in society. I mean, I guess in the last maybe 9 months, I stopped masking as much as I did, and because I decided, Mariah, we're gonna start being ourselves and stop. Who cares what other people think? I'm tired because like literally for let's be honest, for all of most of my life, like literally a from a long from like I guess from a little kid till now, like well, I guess technically earlier last year, I was masking because I knew my behavior wasn't acceptable in society because of you don't know what you're talking about, so be quiet, Emily. North. Um, like I said, masking my emotions was harmful for myself. Like it literally, I felt exhausted from doing that. So, and I don't think it's fair that neurotypicals get to be the way they fully be the way they are, and a lot of us have to mask because our behavior is not the way society likes, which is very, very disgusting, and is typically why a lot of us don't speak about our emotions or kind of shut down probably because we're told we're not supposed to act a certain way. So when we do, it's like, oh, this behavior is off-putting. I know there's even instances like particularly, let's be honest, the ABA. I know people hate me talking about this. I don't even like talking about it. ABA is for basically to change how the person is so they can't naturally be themselves. And I think that's disgusting. Like you shouldn't change someone how they are. If they're naturally a certain way, like leave them alone. They're not bothering you. You may not like their behavior or whatever, but you can go away. Like you can go somewhere else if it bothers you. Like if my behavior bothers somebody else to a point where they don't want to be around me, that's fine. They're allowed to go and walk somewhere else or go somewhere else to avoid the behavior. That's fine. But in order to try to tell someone they can't be that way because um, it's not pleasurable to you, like it's not pleasing, that's not okay. And when I say masking, I'm not talking about COVID masking. It's not the same thing. I'm talking about masking as when it refers to being autistic and any other disability out there. I'm not talking about COVID masking. They're not the same at all. They're completely different. Masking as in to keep yourself safe, that's completely different. Like I'm not talking about that kind of mask that you physically put on. I'm talking about the to be your fully yourself. Oh, and hi, Dark One. I'm sorry. I think it's just important to speak it because, like, I know for me, I thought I used to tell people this. Even my ex, I would tell them. I said I didn't feel comfortable with myself because um, I always felt like when I am myself, people are gonna hate that crap because people have shown me in society like myself is not good enough because it has to be like literally like everyone else's, and that's not true. So I fed into a lie that should never been fed into because I have to be had to be a certain way, which I don't. Um, well, I'm glad that you asked those questions. I'm hopefully it helped you understand me a little bit better. Um, yeah. And sorry for anyone that felt offended when I said that person like they don't know what they're talking about, but they didn't know what they're talking about. They assumed I was talking about the COVID masking. I wasn't talking about COVID masking. I was talking about um, masking when it involves having being autistic. I was talking about emotional mask, or personality. Or personality is a mask, like all the basically everything that makes up of you is masked in order for society to see a version of you that's acceptable, which is very disgusting. Okay, since there are no more questions, I'm gonna tell you what Monday is gonna be about. Their live stream for that. I love those Monday live streams. For anyone that hasn't been to one, I think you would like those. They're more chill and more relaxed, and I get to be more myself in those. So the next fun unscripted live stream, and also those live streams on Mondays are always at 6 p.m. Eastern. So it's on Monday, January 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern. And the next scripted live stream will be on Saturday, January 11th at noon Eastern, and will be on the topic of challenges autistics and ADHD people face in the workplace and how and what can help. And I saw this article on, I don't know if anyone knows about authentic, what's her name? Is her name Emily? I think her name is Emily. Authentic Emily's blog. And I really liked her article. I like a lot of her articles. I was reading them and I really enjoy her blog. So if you want to look that up, you can surely do that. Um, of course, I'm going to put the notes below this video and also the article that I use. So if you want to read the article instead of, uh, because I know I made a lot of pronunciation issues. Sorry, guys, but I try my best. And I know some people like it, some people hate me for being myself. Some people are like, okay, Mariah, you can just, like, I know I've had, like, someone say you should get off the internet and do your homework and grades matter. But whatever. But I'm not a teenager and I'm not a child. I'm not still in school. Thanks guys for watching. Love you guys. Bye.